Welcome to Board Game Binge, the place where we bring you bite sized, bingeable board game content from across the industry. I'm your host, James Staley, and in this episode, we're chatting with Martin van Rossum from Rolling Rhino Games, a print and play game publisher focused on great game design. Their newest title, Chateau, is currently on Kickstarter. Martin, welcome to the binge. How are you doing?
Hi, James. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm doing fine. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. It is awesome to have you on the binge. Thank you so much for joining us. Let me just start off by saying, what a cool name of your company, Rolling Rhino. I love it. What was the genesis behind that?
It was quite a journey because it's honestly quite hard to come up with a company name. You have to get a domain name, of course. So it was just endless brainstorming, finding out any available domain names, and we found it really fun. And we wanted something, of course, like related to games. So we had rolling because we make a lot of dice games,
Mhm.
and something that relates to an animal. That's always good to have a mascot. But in the end, the rolling, it was a dice at first, but now it's more like a rhino on roller skates
Yeah.
because it was just more fun.
Oh, the logo is super cool. I absolutely love it. So congrats on that.
Thanks.
What do you do? Like, what's your day job? What do you do for a living outside of board games?
Okay, so I recently changed jobs quite dramatically, also to make it more easily to design games. So I was a teacher in higher education, and I quit my job in the summer. And now I run a family business. So my parents started the business, and I'm taking over. It's a
Yeah.
retail business, garden center, e-commerce. So we have some web shops. So I have about 40 employees right now, but it allows
Wow.
me to be an entrepreneur and also combine this with the um, the hobby, and also be an entrepreneur in there.
That's awesome. And what were you teaching before? So in the higher education, like what
Yeah.
specifically were you teaching?
So my students were becoming primary school teachers themselves, and I was teaching them science, biology, technology. Those were the courses I was teaching them.
Yeah.
So it was really a lot of fun, especially pre-COVID, because we've been working from home for a long time during all of that. But that was also time for like a new challenge for me personally.
Yeah. And in
So
that case, were you like obviously teaching like the subjects, right, to these people who would
yeah,
then go on to become teachers themselves? Did you get into any of the teaching side as well, like teaching them,
yeah,
how to teach these subjects? Because a lot of that comes is
yeah,
important, right? It's not about just
yeah,
knowing the topic, but it's okay. Now, how do you teach this to someone that doesn't know it, right?
yeah, totally, yeah. So the didactics of
Yeah.
how to bring something across. Honestly, I think most of the lessons were about how to get the message across. Just because my students were becoming primary school teachers,
Yeah.
so they didn't have to know an extreme high level of biology or technology, but because they are minor. Um, how do you call it? Smaller subjects in
Yep.
school.
Okay. Yeah.
So they don't have to have an extremely high level of knowledge, but it was more important to get kids enthusiastic for these kind of subjects,
Yeah.
and to learn how to run. Because of course, primary school teachers, most of them also were women, and not all of them are very much into technology or those kind of
Mm.
subjects. But they are important to teach in primary school. So it was also working on that and making sure all of them felt competent to teach those kind of subjects in their own classes.
And then the shift to this family business, I mean, which is a completely different industry altogether.
Yeah.
I mean, that must have been quite an adjustment for you at all, or was it something that was kind of in the plans for a number of years, or?
Yeah, no, it was really, yeah, it was really a big adjustment, but yeah, it feels really good. It's really fun. I work with my two brothers, my sister, my parents are all in the company, um, which is also complicated, but it's also a lot of fun. But yeah, it's completely different from board game perspective. It's fun that we also sell board games. So I'm also a retailer basically. So you also see the retail side of things, and also see the buying behavior of the regular customers.
Yeah.
So we are a big garden center. We are not like a hobby store. So we sell just smaller games and puzzles, and it's not the board game experts aren't coming to our shop, but just the regular people who are perhaps looking for a fun little card game or a dice game to pick up. So yeah, you also learn about customer behavior in that way.
So it's mainly impulse. I guess, is it impulse buy essentially
Yeah, very
for
much.
these,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Somebody comes
Yeah,
to get a
very much
plant and they
impulse.
see a
Yeah,
yeah,
and also just like for the family, for the kids, for the so you
yeah,
yeah, you see what makes someone buy a game actually, and many of those smaller games are used as gifts.
yeah. It's cool whenever I talk to a guest about, what do they do for a living? And for those who are listening, wondering like, why do you ask a person, why do you get into the board games? Why do you want to know about what they do as a day job? For me, I find it's very interesting in terms of informing how someone approaches the industry, right? So on one side, you have a teaching background, right? So that's going to
Yeah,
help you in terms of rule book design and setting out, the methodology behind how you're going to explain your game to people. So that's a transferable skill. On the business side, obviously, you're going to have things like logistics and sourcing and procurement and even accounting and these kind of skills that are going to come into play when you're doing something like a Kickstarter campaign, right? So having any skill set, quite frankly, in any industry, there's usually something you can transfer over into this industry that's going to help you be, at least have a leg up in one facet of this entire mix of bringing a game to market.
yeah, yeah. You're absolutely right. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's true.
no, it's cool.
Yeah,
It's interesting when you're talking about rolling Rhino games and saying, we want to come up with something that was unique and that we could have access to get the URL, right? That's the big thing is
yeah,
how do I get the URL? How do I
yeah,
get all the social handles that all match so I don't have like three or four different social handles depending on the platform you go on?
yeah,
That was something we did that was very similar when I came up with my company name, Tin Robot Games. The idea of the character was something I was inspired by when I was actually in a restaurant down in New York City. Saw them up on the back of a bar, these little tin robots.
mm,
But a lot of this had to do with, hey, can I get the URL? Can I get the social media handles? And is it all going to match? And when I did the
yeah.
search and saw that it did, I was like, done. Like that's,
Done. Yeah,
that is a huge achievement, right? And that's
yeah,
that's
yeah,
the
yeah,
challenge
yeah,
that
yeah.
not everybody always goes through. So for people out there looking to come up with maybe a company name, that's one thing you want to do when you're doing your name creation. You want to is it go on like a GoDaddy, right, .com and do a
Yeah.
search to see if your URL is available. You want to get a .com, hopefully not pay a premium for it. You want to check the at whatever that handle is, the exact same handle across Facebook, Twitter, Instagram to make sure, and YouTube to make sure you can get those, make sure someone else hasn't taken them. And then lastly, it doesn't hurt to do a trademark search as well. And you can do that by
Yeah.
going to say trademarkia.com and run a trademark search to see if that trademark is taken by anyone else, because that will help you understand if there's going to be a problem down the road once you become successful. That's usually when the people come out of the woods to start challenging you on these types of things, right? So
Yeah, yeah,
kudos to you guys.
yeah, totally. And if I may add, also just besides checking for like trademarks, also just searching because maybe it's not something that's trademarked or someone, but maybe there's just I don't know a big Facebook group or someone with a
Yeah.
big following on Reddit, who knows, or YouTube, that has somewhat of a similar name, and you still might end up getting confused or mixed up with this. Even if the other person doesn't really make a problem out of it, you just want to be found fast and quick by people and on Google especially.
Well, I mean, and I can speak to Canada specifically. Here in Canada, a trademark, you can challenge a trademark even if you don't have it. So if you can show that you have a proof of use, right? So if you can prove you've been using that in the marketplace,
Yeah,
didn't go through the formal process of maybe necessarily applying for the trademark, someone else applies for the trademark, you can still file a claim against them for that, right? And this just
Yeah.
basically keeps trademark trolls from establishing themselves in your marketplace, right? Going and trademarking everything. So then when someone tries to enter the market, they come in and call them out. So you have to show right of use. But if you show right of use, you can still challenge somebody on the trademark, which is
Yeah.
cool in this country, anyways.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about your print and play, right? Because as a company, you've kind of put your stake in the sand and you said, going forward, we're going to be a print and play company. That's what we're putting together. What was the rationale behind that? Why did you decide to take that path?
Well, there are many reasons, many pros for print and play. It's just a way for us to much quicker get a lot more games published and out there, and just much quicker, and also all around the world. It also allows me to focus a lot more on game design, which is just what I enjoy most, and focus less on manufacturing, distribution, logistics, or pitching, communication, if you're going for the route where you're taking a publisher. And also on marketing, because okay, if the game doesn't do very great, it's there's not much harm. There isn't a very big investment. So it allows me to just focus on game design, try to bring a good game, and then see if people are interested in backing it and getting it to the table quickly. In about a month later, they can have the game on
Mm.
their table. And it also, yeah, it just appears like in the over the last year, maybe 2 years, it has shown that there's also quite a market of people interested in print and play games.
Yeah.
There's also quite a niche within the hobby who likes these kind of games. And I also personally really like smaller, simpler games, and they also are more easily transferred to the one-page print and play format, because we try to keep everything on one page, which is a challenge. And I also really like the challenge, honestly, with just limiting yourself within the design space. I personally also really like card games, but I just really try to stick to the one page, so no other components besides dice, and then a pencil, or we could replace the dice with some tokens, but that's about as far as we go. So we are very limited within the design space, but it's also really a challenge I just really like.
And then your first game that you launched was, I believe it's called Rocco Ranger, um, which is very successful, over 1,000 backers, which is incredible. So congrats on that. What led into, was that the first game you'd ever created, or was it just the first one you tried to publish on Kickstarter, or how did that come about?
Yeah, well, of, of course, I've created more games that have just failed or weren't good enough. But honestly, Chateau, which is live right now, was finished earlier.
Ah,
It was just a Rocker Ranger. All of the graphics and the art was just done more quickly and was ready faster. And Chateau, we just needed a bit more time. But I expected to bring Chateau first, but Rocker Ranger caught up. But honestly, that's how I see it going with more designs. I think the same goes for you, James, where you work on a few designs at a time, and some designs are stuck at some point, and they maybe won't get as much love for a few weeks or months, and
yeah.
others catch up and pass by. So even yeah, right now the probably our next game is one that's just surpassed like three other games who might make it, but they are either waiting for art, or stuck on some mechanical problem we can't solve just yet. So yeah, that's kind of how it goes.
And who do you get to do your art? Is this always somebody different? Do you have the same people? And how do you approach the art part of this?
So we started out by just posting a message like we're looking for an artist
Hmm.
on our own website and in some groups with artists. And from all the responses, we just filtered and asked someone to get started. And in the end, we did this game with Luis Blanco. He's an artist. I think he lives in Argentina. A very friendly guy, and he also, yeah, makes great art. We're very pleased with what he did for Chateau. Um, So yeah, basically, yeah, we took the that route, just putting it out there, and got a lot of emails. And then of course, yeah, you get a look like what kind of art style fits our game,
Yeah.
and yeah, like that.
Yeah, and I echo the sentiment on finding an art. Number one, we live in a global economy, which is great, right? And the fact that we now have the technology where you can work with people literally around the world. I mean, I'd be remiss not to mention that you're in the Netherlands right now. I'm in Canada, right? We're
Yeah,
having a real time conversation, which just blows my mind. Like 20 years ago, this wasn't a thing, right? So, it is so cool that the technology allows us to do that. And I often do the same thing, right? I'll go onto a Facebook group and I'll say, "Hey, I'm looking for an artist. This is the kind of style I'm looking for. Um, you know,
yeah,
DM me if you're interested." And you
yeah,
will find people from around the world will reach out. And there's some very, very talented people globally, right? So you don't have to just look to the US, or you just don't have to look to the country you live in to find an artist. There are artists around the world that are hungry, that are excited, that want to get into the industry, and it's just a matter of finding the right artist to match up with the vision you have for your particular game.
yeah. And if I may add to that, we also we made a page and we're very specific. So it's not like, hey, we look for an artist. Send me your email. Artists also likes to know like, who are you? What exactly are you expecting? What would the payment look like? Because maybe it's not a budget they're interested in
Yeah,
working with. So we were very specific in we gave examples of the kind of art we would like. We gave a budget. Were very specific in the amount of work it would be. Because yeah, you also have to give them like an opportunity to make a calculation
yep,
and decide, is this something I'm interested in? And you will also see some of the responses. Some of them were just dropped their art
yeah,
station or their email and didn't really read. And some of them really took a look at the page and said, "Oh, I really like this," or I really like castles, and I see this is a castle game, and so and so. So you see, oh, this one really looked at the page, and so he really made sure this is a fit for him or
yeah.
her. Yeah,
Yeah, it is so important to make sure you've got the right fit. And, I think the mistake some people might make, and I made this early in my career in the gaming industry, was I would try to find an artist. And then when I locked in on an artist, I would try my best to try to convince them that I was a fit for them. And that is never the good way to approach it, right?
yeah,
What you want to do is you want to put it out there. This is what I'm looking to do. Here's my budget and so forth. And you put all the criteria. And then
yeah,
you want to find the person that has both the skill set and the design history that kind of matches the look you're looking for, but most importantly, are excited and
yeah,
passionate to work on your project. I mean, it is a monumental difference between working with someone who is excited and really, really wants to work with you on your project and someone that you've kind of had to try to convince and you're haggling over rates and things like that. I mean, you are better off to try to find someone else
yeah,
to come forward with your project, because things are going to come up in your project that you didn't anticipate, or something's going to have to be changed. And what you don't want to be doing is getting into a position where it's a constant kind of haggle back and forth. What you want to do is really look at it as a collaborative process. You got to find somebody who approaches it very much like they are on your team, and it's a collaboration.
yeah. Totally. It's super important. Also, yeah, just communication is super important. So
Yeah,
also when we were selecting, it was also important, like how fast is someone replying, how are they replying, even
yeah,
if they don't speak English. I mean, I'm not a native speaker, but I
yeah.
want to be able to communicate at least. So if someone is from another country, how well can I communicate with this person before we're getting started together?
Yeah, no, for sure. And then with in the Netherlands, how is the gaming industry there? Is it large? Do you have like gaming groups that you go to? Like, how's the industry there?
um, I think it really differs from where you live. In the bigger cities, there's quite a lot going on. But I feel like the Netherlands is there are quite a lot of board game enthusiasts. There are also quite a lot of Dutch board game designers. So
Hmm.
I feel like it's a very yeah, it's very active hobby around here. Um, yeah, for publishing, most publishers do focus a lot on translating and
Mm,
putting out games from other countries. because we are a smaller market, of course.
Yeah,
So
localization. Yeah.
yeah, just localization of foreign games. So there is perhaps a little less potential of finding different publishers to pitch to, or because that's their focus of most of them, which is understandable because we are a fairly small market and there are so many great games, so many big publishers they can do business with, of course.
Yeah. So I'm going to just circle back to Chateau here for a second. So, because I want to talk about this game as well, which is live on Kickstarter. So, and I'd be remiss not to say that, as well as that you've already hit your goal. So, congratulations. What was the inspiration behind Chateau?
Well, Chateau started out when I was doing a challenge with myself. So one game a week, one
Hmm.
page, one game a week. And my son was 4 at the time. And he really liked these kind of games, these puzzle games with the polyomino shapes. So for everyone, anyone who doesn't know, it's a polyomino game where you must complete a castle, basically. And my son really liked those kind of games, but many of them at the end had quite complicated math and scoring. And well, he was 4, so he couldn't read and he couldn't do any complicated math. And other games that were simpler were perhaps a bit repetitive for me. So I was looking for a game that would be fun for both of us, and I tried to create this with Chateau. So it's a game that's really easy to get into, and youngsters can easily play it. It has a castle theme, so that's something that appeals to youngsters. But also, they are based on the official historic buildings. So any adult who's into history or traveling would also really like the theme. And I really try to merge those two. And for the adults, there is asymmetry. Every castle is different, so there's replayability. So I try to merge those two worlds and bring something that's very accessible and simple, but also offer some depth.
And then how many castles are there altogether? Like I'm counting here. It looks like there's at least, is it 12? 12 castles?
Yeah, we started the campaign with 5 in a base game, and there are 2 expansions: one for Scandinavia with 3 castles, and one
Hmm.
for the United Kingdom with 3 castles. And we have a total of 9 castles as stretch goals. So if we hit, there are currently already 4 unlocked. If we hit all of them, there would be a total of 20 castles available. So and each of them has a different blueprint, different ability, some special rule they can mess around with, and yeah, and offer a new strategy basically.
And then with your, so it's basically €5, right? So if somebody wants
Yeah.
to do a base pledge, €5, which isn't a huge investment. I'm sure people are spending that on coffees right now. And so for €5, you get the base game, which comes with, so sorry, sorry, it's 5 that come with the base?
Yeah, so in the base game, it's
Okay.
Neuschwanstein, which is a very famous one in Germany. It's Alhambra in Spain, Buckingham Palace in Britain, Castel del Monte in Italy, and Chateau de Versailles, if I'm pronouncing all of these correctly, in France. So some of the most famous ones are in this base set.
Oh, that's awesome. So $5 for the base game, $8, then you can get the base game plus you pick one of these regions, or for $11 you get the whole thing.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
essentially get
correct.
all the castles,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
which is cool. So if definitely lots of replayability there. How did you choose the castles? How did you come up with these different castles?
Yeah, that was honestly, yeah, that was, it was quite hard because there's so many to choose from.
Yeah,
Uh, so we made, yeah, just made a very long list and then set some criteria. So first of all, there were a few that are just very famous and had to be included, like for instance, Chateau de Versailles
yeah,
uh, and Neuschwanstein. So there are some of them that were like, yeah, they have to be in the game. But then you're looking for a diversity. You want castles with different shapes. I want each of them to be very unique.
yeah,
I mean, there are quite a lot of castles who are quite similar in their blueprint. They have like 4 towers, like the classic castle look. So I wanted only one of in this style basically. So I wanted different blueprints. I wanted castles in different countries. So I wanted one in Spain, one in Italy, one in just the major European countries who are known for their castles. and also because I know many of our backers come from those countries. So, and I know it's always fun to see something from your own country.
Sure.
Yeah, so I try to include many different countries, but also just looking from a gameplay perspective. I really visually really like symmetric buildings or symmetric blueprints. So quite a lot of them are symmetric. Like for instance, Castel del Monte is perhaps one that's not the most um, famous castle, but it is a really cool castle with like 8 pillars,
Yep.
completely symmetrical. So that's just a really cool shape. So that's why it made it into the game, basically. And then, of course, some of the castles were just, we couldn't fit the spaces in there. So they were not an option. So every castle has around 60 spaces. Some have a few more, some have a
Mm,
few less.
I
And
was
this
gonna
is what
ask
we,
that.
yeah, okay, yeah. This is something we balanced with the abilities. So some have a few more spaces, but have quite a stronger ability. But if it really didn't fit within between 58 and 62, it was just not an option to use that castle. And all of them are, of course, simplified versions of the blueprints. None of them
Yeah.
are on scale, but it still has to work and still has to resemble the blueprint. So it was really quite a puzzle and a lot of drawing these castles and oh no, this one doesn't work and heading on to the next. And then of course, yeah, trying to really pick 20 very distinct ones. I also wanted different times when they were built, different
Mm.
years, some different ages. So yeah, just trying to offer some replayability in that way.
Yeah, it's cool. I love hearing the process, right? So you have like you choose a castle, you pick a blueprint, or I guess if you can look at it from a bird's eye view of the castle, and then you send it over to the artist at that point and say, okay, now here's our castle. Simplify it, and then do they put the squares in, or are you putting the squares in, or how does that? How do you do all that?
No, no, no. The game was all done when we sent it to the artist. So um, we just started off with a very ugly prototype with just blocks representing the blueprint, and just playtesting them over and over again. And
Mm.
yeah, if it turned out one, so first of course you start with just some math. So some abilities, these are a bit stronger. So
Yeah.
we match these with the bigger castles. But when it turns out like this castle has just a hard time winning, or this is way too strong, then we switch around the abilities, nerf the abilities, buff them, or we also have like hammers. Hammers allow you to mark off any space. So we
Yeah.
so add or reduce the amount of hammers, and the icons that are placed in the chateau can also be placed a bit more difficult or a bit easier. So those are basically the few things we could adjust, and then just endless playtest until all of those 20 chateaus are at the same level of are balanced and have an equal chance of winning basically. And at that point, everything goes towards the to the artist.
No, that's crazy. Yeah, and I think this is helpful for other people that are maybe doing their own game design, right? That want to do a roll and write or something like that. Is you create a very crude version, right? And then once you kind of get that worked out and the mechanics worked out, then you can kind of send it off to the artist and get them to kind of clean it up. I know myself often if I have cards, I'll use clip art, images. I'll go on something
Yeah.
like Flat Icon or the Noun Project to get icons that I can put on the cards. And again, you're working through mechanics, and I wait until we have something that's kind of working
Yeah.
well before then you take to the next step to say, okay, let's get an artist now to reskin this and clean it up and make it look truly beautiful, right? So,
Yeah.
so that's super awesome. And so now you're doing obviously roll and writes, kind of what you've latched onto. This next game you've got coming up. Is this a roll and write as well, or is it a different print and play, or what's the next game you've got kind of coming?
Yeah.
If you're
Uh,
okay to talk about it, that
yeah,
is.
no, 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 that's okay, that's okay. I'm just in my mind, like there are two games that are quite getting closer. Yeah, no, let's talk about one that isn't so much a roll, all right? that's more of a like a story-driven game. It's one we're working on as well. And also like with Rogue Ranger, a previous game, is also a bit like on the edge of, is it a roll and write game? Like Chateau is much more what you expect from a roll and write game. Simultaneous play, everyone uses the same dice, there are polyomino shapes, so much more of those conventional roll and write mechanisms return in that game. But we do try, to come up with something unique, of course, because the run and write genre is very crowded, and also the print and play genre is also getting a lot more crowded. But it's also just fun to find something that hasn't been done with one sheet of paper and a pair of dice.
Yeah.
So we do try, to come up with something unique, of course.
Oh, that's cool. Well, Martin, I want to wish you all the best on this campaign. I know that you're only part way through. You just launched. Can't wait to see how many days you got left. 29 days left. So you're already funded. So good for you. I'm sure you're going to be happy with where this ends up landing. And I can't wait to see the next iteration coming out of Rolling Rhino Games. For those who do want to back this campaign, simply go to Kickstarter and type in Chateau. You'll find it there. I'll also put a link in the show notes, or you can go to the Board Game Binge podcast Facebook group. It's a private Facebook group. Simply send us an invite when you get there. That'll keep the bots out. You'll get an automatic approval after about 2 minutes. And we'll also put a link in the video there. Martin, all the best this coming year to you and your family. You take care.
Thank you very much, James.
Cheers. This has been an episode of the Board Game Binge podcast, hosted by James Staley, produced by James Staley and Mike Bruner, with original music by Nick Smith. If you would like to watch these interviews live, simply subscribe to our YouTube channel, Board Game Binge, and you'll get access to live interviews, giveaways, and interesting board game content from across the industry. I can't wait for you to join us. See you next time.